Every night at 3:12 a.m., his bathroom door opened on its own. But last night, he recorded it, and something was watching him. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. Michael lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, struggling to fall asleep. Then, like clockwork, he heard it again. Creak. His bathroom door had opened on its own. A chill crawled up his spine as he sat up, rubbing his tired eyes. He had only lived in apartment number 6 for a week, but every night, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the same thing happened. He had checked everything: the hinges, the floor, the air vents, but found no logical explanation. The door simply opened. Michael took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "It's just a draft," he muttered to himself. But even as he said it, doubt crept in. He had sealed the windows shut. The vents were working fine. There was no airflow strong enough to push open a door. Tonight, he had had enough. Grabbing his phone for light, he swung his legs over the bed and walked toward the bathroom. The closer he got, the colder the air became. His bare feet tingled against the wooden floor. He hesitated at the doorway. Then, gathering his courage, he reached for the door and pushed it open. The bathroom light was off, but the faint glow from the street lights outside illuminated just enough for him to see the bathtub. And then, his breath caught in his throat. Someone was sitting inside. A figure barely visible in the darkness, hunched in the tub. He couldn't see its face, but he could feel its gaze, deep, hollow, and watching. Michael's pulse pounded in his ears. He stumbled backward, slamming his hand against the light switch. The bathroom lit up in a harsh, yellow glow. The bathtub was empty. Michael's breath came in short, uneven gasps. He scanned every inch of the bathroom. The shower curtain was pulled back. The sink was dry, and the mirror reflected nothing unusual. He even checked behind the door. Nothing. His mind raced. Had he imagined it? The darkness could play tricks on tired eyes, right? Maybe it was a shadow, a product of his exhaustion. But deep down, he knew better. Swallowing hard, he closed the bathroom door and locked it. He hurried back to bed, pulling the covers over himself, his ears straining for any sound. Minutes passed, then an hour. Eventually, exhaustion overtook fear, and he drifted into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, Michael tried to push the memory aside. He convinced himself it had been a hallucination, a trick of the mind. To distract himself, he went about his morning routine, brushing his teeth, making coffee, and checking his phone. He was about to head out for work when something made him freeze. The bathroom door was open again. His stomach twisted. He was sure, absolutely sure, he had locked it the night before. He took a cautious step forward and peered inside. Sunlight streamed through the small window above the sink, casting bright patches on the tiled floor. Everything looked normal, except the bathtub drain. There was water pooled around it, dark, murky water. But he hadn't used the bathtub. Michael's fingers tightened around his phone. He crouched down and touched the liquid. Cold. He wiped his fingers on a towel, trying to stay calm. Maybe a leak. Maybe the old plumbing was acting up. He needed an explanation. Any explanation. That wasn't what his mind was suggesting. That night, he set up his phone to record. He placed it on his nightstand, facing the bathroom door, and hit record come easily. Every creak in the apartment made him tense. Every gust of wind outside made his skin prickle, but eventually, exhaustion won. The next morning, before even getting out of bed, he grabbed his phone and checked the recording. At first, there was nothing. Hours of stillness. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., the door slowly creaked open. Michael's breath caught as he watched. The door swung inward, inch by inch, revealing the dark bathroom beyond. Then, at the very edge of the frame, a shadow moved. Michael sat frozen, gripping his phone so hard, his knuckles turned white. Something had been there, and it was watching him. Michael stared at his phone screen, his heartbeat hammering in his chest. The grainy footage showed exactly what he feared, his bathroom door opening on its own. But that wasn't the worst part. At the very edge of the frame, something moved. A shadowy figure shifted within the darkness of the bathroom, just before the recording cut off. Michael rewound the video, watching it again and again. Each time, his stomach twisted tighter. He wasn't imagining things. Something was inside his apartment. Swallowing hard, he forced himself to stay calm. He needed an explanation, a rational one. Maybe a trick of the light. Maybe his tired eyes were playing games with him. But then, he remembered the puddle of water by the bathtub, the door unlocking itself, and the feeling, the certainty, that someone had been watching him. Michael took a deep breath and stood up. He had two choices: ignore it and hope it went away, or face it head on. He chose the latter. The day passed in a blur. At work, he could barely focus, his mind replaying the footage over and over. By the time he got home, the sun was already setting, casting long shadows through his apartment. Before doing anything else, he checked the bathroom. Everything seemed normal. The floor was dry. The door was shut. Nothing looked out of place. But Michael wasn't about to take any chances. He grabbed a roll of duct tape and, without hesitation, sealed the bathroom door shut. He pressed the tape firmly along the edges, making sure there was no way it could swing open on its own. Then, just to be sure, he shoved a chair in front of it. He exhaled, stepping back to admire his work. "Let's see you open now," he muttered under his breath. Feeling slightly better, he ate dinner, watched TV, and tried to shake off the lingering unease. But deep inside, he knew tonight would be another long one. A.M. Michael lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. His apartment was silent except for the occasional hum of the refrigerator. Then it started, a faint scratching sound. His breath hitched. It was coming from the bathroom door. His heart pounded as he sat up, straining to listen. The sound was light, almost hesitant, like fingertips brushing against the wood. Then, something else. Footsteps, soft, slow, moving down the hallway outside his bedroom. Michael's blood turned ice cold. The only other person with a key to this apartment was the landlord, and he had no reason to be here at this hour. The footsteps stopped. Michael held his breath. Then, knock, knock, knock. A quiet tapping on his bedroom door. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. His mind screamed at him to do something, but his body refused to move. The door handle twisted. Michael lunged for his nightstand and grabbed his phone. With trembling fingers, he turned on the flashlight and pointed it at the door. Silence. The handle stopped moving. He waited, heart hammering in his chest, until he finally worked up the courage to get out of bed. Slowly, he approached the door and pressed his ear against it. Nothing. Summoning every ounce of bravery he had left, he unlocked the door and swung it open. The hallway was empty, but as he shined his flashlight toward the bathroom, his stomach dropped. The chair had been moved. The duct tape was torn, hanging in limp, useless strips, and the bathroom door wide open. Michael staggered back, his breath coming in short gasps. His mind raced for an explanation, but there was none. The tape had been firmly in place. The chair had been solidly blocking the door, and yet he took a cautious step forward and aimed his flashlight into the bathroom. The beam of light swept across the sink, the toilet, the bathtub. He froze. Water, dark, murky water pooled at the bottom of the tub. It hadn't been there before. And the worst part, there were footprints leading out of it. Wet, bare footprints, leading straight toward him. Michael's vision blurred as a wave of nausea hit him. His body screamed at him to run, to get out of this apartment and never come back. But then, just as he was about to turn, a voice, low, hollow, right behind him. "Why did you lock the door?" Michael spun around, his phone slipping from his grasp and clattering onto the floor. The flashlight landed at an angle, casting erratic shadows across the walls. There was no one behind him, but the air was ice cold, and somewhere, just out of sight, something was still watching. Michael's hands trembled as he picked up his phone, his breath coming in short, uneven gasps. The voice, it had been right behind him, but when he turned, there was no one there. The wet footprints on the floor remained. The bathroom door stood wide open, and inside the bathtub, the dark water remained eerily still. He had to get out of this apartment. Michael stumbled back into his bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it. He pressed his back against the wall, his mind racing. He needed to think. He needed to drip. His body stiffened. Drip, drip, water, coming from inside his room. His eyes darted to the ceiling. The sound was coming from above. With a shaking hand, he grabbed his flashlight and aimed it at the ceiling. The moment the light hit, his blood ran cold. A dark stain had spread across the ceiling, directly above his bed. Water dripped steadily from it, forming a small puddle on his blanket. But it wasn't just any stain. It was in the shape of a person. Michael's breath caught. His mind screamed at him to leave, to run, but his legs refused to move. Then, before his eyes, something changed. The stain shifted. Slowly, it turned its head. Michael bolted. He yanked the bedroom door open and sprinted down the hall. His only thought was to get to the front door, get outside, get away from whatever this was. But as he reached the door, his heart nearly stopped. It wouldn't budge. He twisted the lock, pulled with all his strength, but the door refused to open. It was as if something on the other side was holding it shut. Then, from behind him, a splash. Michael turned, his entire body tense. The bathroom door stood open. The air was damp, the smell of stagnant water thick in the air. And inside the bathtub, someone was sitting there. A man. Michael's flashlight flickered as he stepped closer, unable to tear his eyes away. The figure sat motionless in the tub, his back slightly hunched, his head tilted downward. His skin was pale, almost gray. His clothes were soaked, clinging to his thin frame. Michael's voice came out as a whisper. "Who are you?" The man didn't move. Michael's pulse pounded in his ears. He took a cautious step forward. "Are you?" The man's head snapped. Up. Michael staggered back, his breath caught in his throat. The man's face was wrong. His eyes were too dark, too deep, like looking into a bottomless pit. Water streamed from his mouth, trickling down his chin, as if he had been drowning. And then, in a voice that made Michael's skin crawl, the man spoke. "You left the door open." Michael's heart nearly stopped. The figure began to rise from the bathtub, water sloshing onto the floor. His movements were slow, unnatural, like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. Michael's body finally reacted. He turned and ran, his feet slipping on the damp floor. He didn't stop until he reached the front door again. He grabbed the doorknob, yanked with all his strength. It opened. Without a second thought, Michael bolted out of the apartment, his breath ragged. He didn't stop running until he was outside the building, gulping in the cold night air. For a long moment, he stood there, staring up at the dark windows of apartment number 6. His mind struggled to process what had just happened. Then, a movement caught his eye. From his window, something was watching him. A shadowy figure stood behind the glass, its head tilted slightly. Michael backed away, his hands shaking. He had to leave. He had to find another place to stay. But as he turned to walk away, a terrible thought crept into his mind. Had he closed the bathroom door before he ran? And if he hadn't, what else had followed him out? Michael stood frozen on the sidewalk, his breath misting in the cold night air. His eyes were locked on the dark window of apartment number 6, where the shadowy figure still stood. It wasn't moving. It was just watching. A deep sense of unease wrapped around him like a noose. He needed to go. Now. His first instinct was to call the police. But what would he even say? That his bathroom door opened on its own? That a man who wasn't supposed to exist had been sitting in his bathtub? They'd think he was losing his mind. He gritted his teeth, shaking his head. He needed somewhere safe, somewhere far from here. There was only one person who might believe him. Jordan. Michael fumbled with his phone, his fingers trembling as he pulled up Jordan's number. His best friend answered on the second ring. "Dude, do you have any idea what time it is?" Michael's voice was tight. "Jordan, I need to crash at your place." A pause. Then, "Are you okay? You sound..." "I'll explain when I get there. Just let me in." Another pause. Then Jordan sighed. "All right, door's open." Michael didn't waste another second. He turned away from the apartment complex, forcing himself not to look back, and started walking. 20 minutes later, he stood outside Jordan's small apartment. The moment he stepped inside, the warmth of the space washed over him, but it did nothing to ease the tightness in his chest. Jordan sat on the couch, rubbing his eyes. "All right, man, spill. What's going on?" Michael hesitated. Where did he even begin? The apartment. Something's wrong with it. He swallowed. "Every night my bathroom door opens on its own. I thought it was just bad hinges or something. But I saw someone in my bathtub. A man. And then the door started unlocking itself. Things were moving." He exhaled sharply. "I ran out. But before I left, I saw something watching me from my window. Jordan blinked at him. You sure you weren't just dreaming? Michael shot him a sharp look. I recorded it, Jordan. He pulled out his phone and opened the footage. Watch. Jordan leaned in, his expression growing serious as he watched the bathroom door creak open on its own. Then came the shadow, the faint, unnatural movement within the darkness. Jordan paled. That's messed up. Michael nodded. I told you, I'm not crazy. Jordan let out a slow breath, setting the phone down. Okay, you're staying here tonight. Relief flooded Michael. Thanks, man. Jordan stood up and stretched. All right, I need sleep. Just crash on. The couch, Michael gave a tired nod. He curled up on the couch, pulling a blanket over himself. He would deal with the apartment in the morning. He just needed one night of peace. 12 a.m. Michael's eyes snapped open. The room was silent. The only light came from the faint glow of the street lamp outside. Then, drip. Michael stiffened. Drip, drip. The sound was coming from the kitchen. His stomach twisted into knots. He slowly turned his head, peering toward the sink. The faucet was dripping. A slow, steady rhythm. But something was wrong. The puddle forming beneath it was too dark. Michael sat up, his pulse hammering in his ears. He reached for his phone, turned on the flashlight, and aimed it at the sink. The light illuminated the water. It wasn't water. It was black, thick, oozing down the drain like ink. Then, a single wet footprint appeared on the kitchen floor. Michael's breath caught in his throat. Then, another and another. They were leading toward him. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He turned toward Jordan's room, ready to wake him. Jordan's door was open, and standing in the doorway was a figure, tall, dripping wet, watching him. Michael couldn't breathe. His body locked up as the figure took a slow, shuffling step forward. The floorboards creaked. Then, in a voice that sent ice through his veins, "You shouldn't have left the door open." Michael scrambled back, his heartbeat a frantic drum in his chest. "Jordan," he choked out. The figure moved, not walked, moved. One moment it was in the doorway, the next, right in front of him. Michael screamed, and then, darkness. Michael's scream was swallowed by the darkness. His body felt weightless, like he was sinking into something deep, something cold. The air around him was thick with moisture, the smell of damp earth and stagnant water filling his lungs. Then, he hit the floor. He gasped, his hands scraping against the wooden surface beneath him. He was back in Jordan's apartment. But something was wrong. The lights were out. The street lamp's glow no longer seeped through the window. The room felt empty. A low dripping sound echoed from the kitchen. Michael swallowed hard. He turned his head slowly. Jordan's door was still open, but Jordan was gone. The bed was neatly made, the room undisturbed. It was as if he had never been there at all. Michael's chest tightened. "Jordan," his voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper. Silence, then tap, tap, tap. His breath hitched. The sound was coming from the front door. A soft, rhythmic tapping, like knuckles gently rapping against the wood. Michael forced himself to stand, his legs unsteady. He took slow, cautious steps toward the door. His fingers hovered over the knob. Then, it turned on its own. Michael stumbled back as the door creaked open. A dark hallway stretched before him. This wasn't the hallway outside Jordan's apartment. It was different, older, wetter. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, blackened with mold. Puddles of dark water pooled along the wooden floorboards. A single dim light flickered above. Michael's pulse pounded in his ears. Then, at the far end of the hallway, he saw it. A door. The bathroom door. His stomach twisted. This wasn't Jordan's place. This was his apartment. Somehow, impossibly, he had ended up back at apartment number 6. His breathing grew shallow. His mind screamed at him to run, to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. But his feet carried him forward, step by step, toward the open bathroom door. The light inside flickered. Shadows moved across the walls. And then he saw it. The bathtub. The water inside was pitch black, rippling as if something was stirring beneath the surface. Michael's body locked up, his vision blurred. He wanted to move, to turn back, but he couldn't. Then slowly, a hand emerged from the water, pale, thin, fingers stretching unnaturally long. Then another hand. Then a face. Michael choked on his own breath. It was the same man, the one he had seen before, the one who had been watching. Only now his eyes were open. Dark, hollow voids where his eyes should have been. Water streamed from his mouth, bubbling up like he was still drowning. Then, in a voice that was both distant and impossibly close, he spoke. "You left the door open." The words struck Michael like a physical blow. He staggered back, his vision spun. The shadows in the bathroom shifted. Something was behind him. He turned, and the door slammed shut. The next morning, sunlight poured through the window of apartment number 6, illuminating the empty space. The bathroom door stood slightly ajar, the air inside still damp. There was no sign of Michael, no signs of a struggle, no footprints, no water stains, just an empty apartment. And inside the bathroom, the bathtub was full. Dark water lapped gently against the porcelain edges, still waiting. Then, a soft ripple, and from beneath the surface, a single breath.